Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the vertical farming collapse. You probably remember the hype, right? We were promised this absolute revolution. Lush, glowing green agricultural skyscrapers feeding every major city on Earth, completely independent of the seasons, the soil, or the climate. It was the ultimate Silicon Valley dream of food, fully automated, hyperlocal, and supposedly incredibly efficient. But today? Well, today, we are looking at the aftermath of a multi-billion-dollar lesson in harsh economic reality.
Let's start with a pretty stark contrast. In just a few short years, industry giants like Bowery and Plenty went from massive tech valuations to literally boarding up their glass towers. Back in the peak hype of 2021, these companies were treated like absolute unicorns. Bowery Farming alone reached a valuation of $2.3 billion, and Plenty Unlimited secured over $1 billion from heavyweights like SoftBank and Walmart. Yet, skip ahead to 2026, and those same flagship facilities in places like California and Virginia are dark, dusty, and totally locked up.
So this brings us to a massive $2 billion mystery that we're going to dissect today. How exactly did the smartest investors in the world get the future of our food so staggeringly wrong? How did they pour mountains of capital into these operations only to find themselves completely defeated by the fundamental biology of a simple green leaf? To understand the collapse of this revolution, we really have to look closely at the incredibly expensive infrastructure and operational nightmares that were hiding right behind those purple LED lights.
Part 1. The Silicon Valley Delusion. The fatal error venture capitalists made was assuming plants could be optimized exactly like lines of code. Investors poured billions into these companies, treating them exactly like tech startups. They spent tens of millions on custom robotic arms just to move lettuce trays around. And they built these bespoke, highly automated water delivery systems. They paid massive premiums for software engineering talent, basically trying to arrogantly disrupt an industry that traditional farmers have handled incredibly efficiently for centuries with pretty basic, low-cost machinery. It was this hugely expensive capital infrastructure built on a fundamentally flawed premise.
And here is the fatal flaw in that whole move fast and break things mentality. In software, if you make a mistake, you push a patch in a few hours. No big deal. In biology, you absolutely cannot push a software patch to a living organism. If your highly complex temperature control algorithm glitches for just 3 hours, 500,000 plants die of root rot. An entire quarter of revenue can literally be wiped out in a single afternoon.
Which leads us to Part 2, the physics of farming. The ultimate undoing of this industry wasn't just bad management. It was a brutal collision with the physics of a green leaf. I mean, think about traditional open-field farming. Photosynthesis is powered by the sun. That is a giant fusion reactor 93 million miles away that gives us abundant, 100% free light. When you attempt to replace that free reactor with industrial LEDs, the physical reality is shocking. Green plants are actually highly inefficient at converting LED light energy into chemical energy. We're talking a mere 1 to 2%. That means up to 98% of the electricity fed into those lights is lost entirely as waste heat.
Because of that terrible energy efficiency, you're forced to run massive industrial air conditioning systems 24/7. Otherwise, your warehouse turns into an oven. This extreme operational cost traps these facilities in what industry experts call the lettuce trap. They're forced to grow fast-growing, low-light crops like microgreens, which, by the way, are 95% water, just to survive. They're essentially forced to sell hyper-expensive packaged water to offset their colossal electricity and HVAC bills. It's a trap they simply couldn't escape.
But here's the crucial point. A major city cannot survive on lettuce alone, right? True urban nutrition, the kind of food production that actually secures a population, requires high-calorie, dense staple crops. We're talking wheat, rice, corn, soybeans. But those crops, they require massive amounts of light intensity over very long growth cycles just to accumulate carbohydrates.
And this is where the unit economics become a complete disaster. According to academic calculations, to grow just 1 single kilogram of indoor wheat, the electricity required for the LEDs alone costs an astonishing $19. $19! And that is just the lighting. We're not even accounting for the luxury real estate, the robotics, or the water systems.
Now, contrast that $19 directly with the global market price of traditionally grown sun-fed wheat. That sits at just 29 cents per kilogram. That is a staggering 65-fold cost difference. It's a jaw-dropping physical reality
that no minor LED efficiency tweak, no brilliant new machine learning algorithm, and for sure, no custom robotic arm can ever bridge. The economic challenge of replacing the sun is simply insurmountable when it comes to staple crops.
All right, part 3, the invisible landlord.
By abandoning the free sunlight and rain of traditional farming, vertical farms made themselves entirely dependent on invisible landlords. They layered insurmountable operational costs right on top of each other. First, you've got that massive LED heat waste demanding 24/7 HVAC systems. Then, when global energy prices surged in 2024 and 2025, the unit economics of these facilities basically collapsed overnight. Take the world's largest vertical farm built by Plenty down in Compton, California. When California's energy costs skyrocketed, that facility was effectively killed off and mothballed. The company's valuation plummeted from nearly $2 billion to below $15 million. Add in the fact that these massive, capital-intensive warehouses were placed in or near major urban centers where land is priced for luxury real estate, you create a debt burden that a crop like lettuce simply cannot ever pay off.
And furthermore, this immense power consumption completely shattered the movement's core eco-friendly marketing. You might think buying local indoor greens is helping the planet, but researchers uncovered a pretty dirty secret here. Unless your vertical farm is plugged directly into a dedicated, 100% renewable grid, the massive continuous energy demand actually makes indoor farming's carbon footprint higher per kilogram of lettuce than traditional diesel trucking. You're just shifting the carbon emissions from the highway over to the local fossil fuel-powered electric grid.
Let's move on to our final section, the hybrid future.
So what is the key takeaway from this multi-billion-dollar crash? Well, this crash doesn't mean indoor farming has no future. Far from it. It actually represents a painful but entirely necessary market correction. The industry is finally shedding its venture-backed, tech spectacle facade and is transitioning toward disciplined, realistic, and economically viable agricultural operations.
The survivors of the crash, companies like 80 Acres Farms and Oshii, they're succeeding precisely because they actually respect biology rather than trying to arrogantly fight it. They use smart hybrid greenhouses where massive glass roofs let in natural, completely free sunlight. And they only supplement with highly efficient LEDs on cloudy days. Moreover, they focus really tightly on high-value specialized crops, like premium strawberries, and they strictly secure offtake agreements with buyers before they ever lay a single seed.
And this really brilliantly illustrates our main lesson for today. You simply cannot out-engineer the foundational laws of biology and physics with a bottomless pit of venture capital. The dream of feeding the world entirely from downtown skyscrapers was always an illusion, completely blind to the true operational and economic costs of trying to simulate nature indoors. Traditional agriculture, enhanced by localized smart greenhouse tech, remains the true bedrock of our food supply.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to really chew on. If we had a completely different, radically cheap, and 100% renewable energy grid right from the start, would vertical farming be feeding us today, or is Mother Nature's biology just too strict to hack? Think about how deeply energy costs shape the food on your grocery store shelves. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.